From the RJI studio at the Missouri School of Journalism, welcome to Global Journalist. I'm Sean Brynda. In the past few years, there's been a steady increase of censorship all over the world. With elections in nations such as Belarus, President Lukashenko forced a commercial jet to land just so he could arrest a journalist that was critical of his policies. In Hungary, during the pandemic, the government enacted a fake news law designed to suppress critical coverage by journalists. As Voice of America's Free Press editor Jessica Jarrett can attest, reporters are under siege.
We've been seeing, it feels like for a few years now, the media have come under attack globally, and particularly from governments who seem to be seeking more to discredit or try to attack and harass the media. And that can be like online attacks and often accusing journalists of bias or false information just for reporting critically, and this sort of hostility that then passes down to their supporters and just sows the seed that the media perhaps can't be trusted or are only just showing one version of events. So really, in terms of press freedom globally at the moment, we're seeing just constantly, even in countries that you would consider a democracy, this sort of pushing back against the media as being this independent, clear voice.
In this hemisphere, Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega has become a leading oppressor of journalists. Ortega just claimed a fourth presidential term in what U.S. President Joe Biden termed a pantomime election. That cements the one-time leftist rebel as one of the longest continuous dictators in Central America. He achieved that dubious distinction in part by systematically jailing his press critics.
Since ending May of this year, any person who said that would run for president for the office has been incarcerated. There are 7 candidates that wanted to run for office that are in prison or under house arrest. The first of them was Ms. Chamorro, who is the daughter of the former president Violeta Chamorro. Christina Chamorro is under house arrest since June 2nd. And after her, there were a lot of other people detained.
That's Dagmar Thiel of Funda Medios, an organization that defends press freedoms and independent journalists in both South and Central America. She says that the Ortega regime has done almost everything in terms of ensuring that they keep their power in the country. As for defending other press groups, the Chamorro family is well known in Nicaragua. As the matriarch of the family, Violeta Chamorro was once the president of the country, as well as the vice president of the nation's largest independent newspaper, La Prensa, which had a history of criticizing Daniel Ortega and his family. As the Ortega regime was arresting members of the Chamorro family who were running for president in June, the regime also shut down La Prensa's printing presses. For years, independent Nicaraguan journalists have been speaking out against the Ortega regime. Many have been jailed or forced into exile. According to Reporters Without Borders, this has made Nicaragua one of the least press-free nations in Central America. In the fallout of non-government-sponsored press organizations being shut down, many journalists have left for more secure nations such as Costa Rica, Panama, and the United States. Now take Alberto. He currently works with PCIN, which is the Independent News and Communications of Nicaragua. Now, we are not giving Alberto's full name as he does not want Ortega supporters to come looking for him. When I talked with Alberto, he told me how Daniel Ortega wants to control the narrative in his country.
He wants to control all the social media. He wants to control all the free press into our country. You know that he have a massive monopoly with the state channels into my country. So it's a big problem because you don't have a liberty to express or for work, inclusive for work in your career, because you study for work into career that obviously is journalist. So in Nicaragua is really dangerous if you have or if you want to express uh, uh, the liberty expressions or the free press is really dangerous for your life.
Christina Calcedo Smith is the bridge editor for the Spanish service of Voice of America. She says there have been other media outlets that have been shut down or pressured by the Ortega government, which has led to many fleeing the country to nations with better press freedoms.
A couple of years ago, before the pandemic, a lot of reporters, they self-exiled to Costa Rica. I will say around 30 reporters. One of the main media outlets and TV channels in Nicaragua, 100% Noticias, was, the owner and the editor were detained for more than 6 months, Miguel and Lucia Pineda. So they were both detained. This last year, I think there's a few independent media in Nicaragua. They're just going in numbers less and less by the month. And one of the stories that our reporters were informing or were reporting was about how state media had credentials to cover the elections, but independent media doesn't.
Two other journalists I talked to said that they have been threatened by the Ortega regime as well. One man who goes by the name Dennis is a reporter for two radio stations in Nicaragua, one called ABC Radio Corporación and the other ABC Estéreo. Both stations were pressured by the regime to limit the number of reports against the government. The other man, who goes by Oscar, is a reporter for NC Noticias, which is an online publication. Both Oscar and Dennis also do not wish to have their identities revealed in fear of Ortega's men threatening their families and livelihoods. Both men said that they will continue to do the reporting on the Ortega regime, but support for their cause is becoming harder to find in their country. When I spoke with Oscar, he said that if the situation in Nicaragua stays the same or worsens, he may leave the country with his family to a safer place. One of the events that led down to this increasing crackdown in freedom of the press was a protest which took place in 2018, in which Ortega's government had dismantled a large portion of the nation's social security. This led to a nationwide protest from students and activists that were calling for Ortega to step down from power, as Dagmar Thiel can attest.
Students were on the street protesting. They were letting their voice heard, and there were over 200 people killed. And these killings haven't been cleared yet, so they are still unpunished. And this is probably the most visible vulneration of violation of human rights.
Since 2018, there have been more than 100 independent journalists who have fled Nicaragua. A handful of journalists who have left the country have gone to Costa Rica, where they have found support with the free press group EPLEX. Marco Barquero, a reporter and member of EPLEX, told me what happens when Nicaraguan journalists come to their headquarters in the Costa Rican capital of San Jose.
I mean, like, they are more relaxed. They have been in a safer space, so they can work now. Now they are less under pressure than before. So they go back to Nicaragua with a whole different profile, a whole different state of mind. So that's how we work with them, even though when they need psychological support or legal support, we are helping them. Actually, due to the pandemic, they are here with with insurance and all that stuff.
As for the future of the country, reporters such as Alberto plan to keep reporting against the Ortega regime, as Daniel Ortega once again claims his fourth term in what has become a false democracy.
I hope that maybe the international community could be try to make better work to exercise pressure against the government.
That's all for now here at Global Journalists. To watch and hear more, please check out our website at www.globaljournalist.org. I'm Sean Brynda, and this has been Global Journalist.